and I'm the Director of Cloud and Hosting Services for Cloud at Work. Cloud at Work is a Net at Work sister company, and most of you are familiar with Net at Work. Really what Cloud at Work does is we provide cloud solutions specific for Sage customers and Sage end users, and combine best-in-class cloud technology paired with our amazing application team. So it creates a SaaS experience for all Sage customers, and we've been doing a lot of great work in the Sage ecosystem for a long time. So let's just jump right in. Everybody, I'm sure, is aware of the situation that we're all currently feeling the impact of, and really what's happened because of this recent pandemic has been a complete shift of employees and employers needing to work remotely. So much so that the cloud has been utilized more than ever before, whether that's through cloud providers for your applications, whether that's through personal use of Zoom meetings, whether that's collaboration tools to keep in touch with employees and keep tasks in production. But these are just a few headlines that recently have been out there. The first is about Microsoft and really this huge spike in resources moving to the cloud and moving to Azure, as well talking about some of the other work from home routines and the shifts. A lot of folks I've been talking to, a lot of our customers, hundreds of our customers the past 2-3 weeks. And the biggest question that I get asked is this temporary in our opinion? In my opinion, I feel like this is a fundamental shift that is going to stay. More and more people are finding that they can do the tasks, do the same work remotely, but that just creates a different paradigm, a different need than maybe some traditional businesses have, as far as creating local infrastructure and a local connection to that infrastructure. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Sage predominantly for a long time has been an on-premise application. You bought the software, you paid for the software, paid maintenance. Now most people pay subscription to the software. But as far as cloud solutions go, Sage is not alone in the fact that ERP really has been trailing behind from other applications in the cloud. This is a good graph that shows CRM and HR applications really as early adopters of the cloud, mainly of software as a service. The reason for that is a lot of CRM and HR software companies were born right around the time where the cloud really became popularized as a term. So those platforms were built on cloud first mentalities. Sage software and a lot of other ERP softwares have a few different components to them. One being that they have a large base of customers. Two being that third-party integrations, ISVs, customizations exist, and those aren't easily just transitioned to a software as a service. Software as a service is definitely a fantastic option for customers. The challenge is that with customers who have ERP softwares that have customizations, third parties, ISVs, it's not necessarily a box that they can fit within. Software as a service is essentially built to create a box saying, look, if you fit within this box, that's fantastic, come on in. If you have anything lingering outside of the box, you either need to let it go and let it go live by itself, or find another solution. The reason why we're starting to see a huge uptick in ERP software, sorry, 1 second. My headset was dying, I apologize. The reason why we're seeing a huge uptick in ERP software adoption is because of hosting providers and different cloud providers creating creative solutions for ERP specific applications. The market is shifting where now folks are realizing that cloud is fantastic, but cloud isn't the only thing that businesses consume. They also consume applications, right? And so creating a better experience around those applications is really creating a huge upswing for ERP adoption in the cloud. This is a great graph to kind of show just 3 years ago where everybody predominantly was and where the market is shifting. So in 2017, 37% of workloads were running on premise. So it's a pretty big number as far as cloud has been around since really like 2008, 2007. So in 2017, on-premise still had a large portion of the workloads. Fast forward 3 years, that's a 10% shift. That's a huge shift in just 3 years, and that's going to continue even more in 2020, just given the current landscape. Same with public cloud consumption and private cloud consumption and hybrid cloud consumption, and we're going to get into what those mean. But you're seeing a huge upswing in adoption, and as I said, these numbers are really pre this recent pandemic and recent technology shift. The reason why you're seeing more and more companies shift to the cloud is really, in my opinion, because the as-a-service model is creating a more stable, secure, scalable way for customers to consume resources. The traditional on-premise model, especially now as workers connect in remotely, it's really difficult for a lot of companies that I talk to get to that level of success. But when I talk to customers who are interested in looking to go and use the cloud for their business, the first thing that we do together is we define success. We define what is acceptable success for your business. And really that translates down to risk versus ROI or cost. So the more risk that you're willing to take on as a company, meaning your application becomes vulnerable, your application is down, the less money you're going to spend outside of your organization to make that happen. The more risk that you want to place outside of your organization, meaning the less risk I have as a business, everything is going to be really positioned outside of the organization, the service providers. Now that starts to push more money into that service provider market. Simple supply and demand, kind of chart from economics in high school. What's really becoming challenging for companies who are deploying on-premise systems is now this remote workforce, this remote shift really has added a lot of complexity. The reason for that is most companies were architected for a very long time to be brick and mortar. Employees come into the office, we can secure our office, so when employees are connecting through our network, we're 100% fine. We feel comfortable with the risks that we're associated. Maybe hardware becomes a little complex, or maybe some additional features take you to the cloud, like disaster recovery or just overall management of systems. But now it becomes a security risk. Security threats, as you can see, have significantly risen all the way from 2007 to 2017. Back in 2007, I'm sure most of us were thinking, this can't be us. There's no way that this will impact us. This only impacts large companies. Fast forward to 2017, and even today, I'm sure all of us on this call know somebody who's been impacted by cybersecurity threats, or maybe it's happened to us ourselves. So in order to kind of stay up to date with the game of technology, it's changing every day. New ways of doing things, new features, new subsets, new as-a-service models are being created every day. And it's very difficult to adhere to that level of success internally without a significant investment into redundancy, availability, and security. So companies are looking at service providers and tapping into those resources that already exist to kind of get them out, not necessarily of the business of CapEx, but get them out of the business of how do I make sure my foundation and my business is secure at that infrastructure level, and how do I make sure that users are going to be able to interact securely with my applications remotely and have that scale as I grow. The reason why in 2020 I feel that you're going to see this increase significantly is because of this shift. You have brick and mortar facilities with local access and really how they're built, and now overnight all of their employees now are outside of the organization, connecting still into that architecture that was built for local access. It's been a real challenge for performance and usability and user experience, which is another topic, but as well, systems that are primarily architected for local access sometimes have major gaps from a remote connectivity, a firewall perspective, a network perspective of a whole bunch of people connecting in. Things like bandwidth, things like monitoring and support, things like redundancies, even backups and having those on separate networks and disaster recovery capabilities really are a huge challenge for organizations today. This is just some of the cyber threats that have been happening locally, right? And really, kind of echoing what I just said about cybersecurity threats on the rise. So if you think about where organizations are at and the current landscape of people connecting in where companies aren't used to that, what it does is it creates a few endpoints, a few gaps that companies really aren't thinking of. The first is, if people are connecting remotely, what devices are they connecting in remotely with? Are they using personal devices? Are you as an organization allowing just folks connecting in from maybe unsecured devices, using VPNs, using just kind of network philosophies around connection? If that's the case, there are risk points around that endpoint. And if it's not a corporate-owned endpoint with antivirus and really managed by internal IT, there could be risk points there because of data leaking down to the device. As well, you're now opening up a huge new world around home networks and home networks being secured because of those endpoints. When you think about having a central network to just basically secure and make sure it's okay, you now have a whole bunch of people at home who also have kids, and I have kids, and they definitely like to click around, right? And spouses who might have unexpectedly clicked on that link, which has compromised their home network. And that is allowing threats to possibly impact the business community like never before because of daily usage from home. So things like the cloud, things like dual factor authentication, things like tools like RDS and Citrix that create a separate connection from the endpoint, separate that endpoint from a connection in, are definitely things that companies are focused on now, just to make sure they're staying ahead of the curve from a technology standpoint around cybersecurity. Still, cybersecurity, more so now than ever, is a people industry. We need to make sure we're talking to our people, talking to our employees, making sure we're making smart choices, making sure that we're extremely diligent about our click habits. So when we talk about, we are looking for cloud options. Let's just hypothetically say you as an organization, as a customer, are now looking for cloud options for your business. The next part of the evaluation you really need to change is to understand that all cloud providers are not created equal, just as their customers are. So we need to be able to find the right cloud for you. And again, that's going to be based off of risk, and it's going to be based off of what types of risk you want to put out into the service provider industry and what you want to keep it. It's going to depend on where you're at from your own internal capabilities, or maybe where you're at currently from another cloud provider that you're using. So we want to make sure that your expectations are met. We want to make sure that you're not overpaying for services that you don't need. We want to make sure that you don't have downtime that you're not prepared for. And we want to make sure that your data is protected. Those are the four main things that every time I walk through and help companies with evaluations of cloud that we go through. And believe it or not, sometimes, at the end of these evaluations, cloud might not be the answer. Cloud isn't always the answer. I'm not here to just say cloud is the best fit for everybody. There are certain times when cloud will not fit, just based on the current investment structure, the current capability structure. Possibly we could achieve success by just adding a very inexpensive layer of, let's say, dual factor authentication into the on-premise environment. So These are just things that Net@Work, Cloud@Work does for our customers to keep an agnostic approach to their technology and make sure we're optimizing that for our. So when you're dealing with cloud providers and investigating cloud providers, you're going to see this. You're going to see these numbers, and we refer to them as nines. A lot of you are probably familiar with them, but maybe some of you have seen them but don't necessarily understand what they mean as far as tangible minutes and hours. So if I'm looking at a service provider and they say, listen, Tyler, we'll be available for you 99% of the time. That sounds like a whole heck of a lot for me, right? If I'm not familiar with this, that sounds like nearly 100%. And what that equates to over the course of a year is over 3.5 days of downtime. And so as a business, we need to ask ourselves, is that acceptable? Some companies, believe it or not, that is acceptable. And it's not a critical application for them. Most Sage users that I talk to, though, that is completely unacceptable when they're running that report or running that payroll job or doing this task. It cannot be down for more than 3.5 days. So we kind of move to the next line. So we look at 3 nines, so 99.9%. That sounds even more appealing and even closer to 100, but still, that's over a day of downtime. That's over 8 hours of downtime. And believe it or not, most companies that I talk to, that is unacceptable as well. So we go to the next line, and that's 99.99%. And this is where Cloud@Work positions our virtual private cloud for Sage customers. Now, this is sub 1 hour of downtime per year, unexpected downtime. These nines are completely ambiguous. So any cloud company, whether they say they're 99% or whether they say they're 100%, they're completely made up by the cloud provider to basically position to you as a customer and to position to the market that, look, based on our investment, based on our redundancy, based on our capabilities as a cloud provider and the steps that we've taken, this is what we feel comfortable with making the line in the sand for you as a customer. So Cloud@Work, Net@Work, we guarantee 4 nines availability, but actually we've been trending towards the 6 nines. We knock on a large piece of wood, but I don't need to because I have a great team. We have not had an outage in over 2.5 years since we started Cloud@Work, which is something I'm very, very proud of and very proud of my team for. So again, it's important to understand what these nines mean and understand what's acceptable for you. So that kind of gets us into the Cloud@Work product set. So as you're doing these steps and we walk through these evaluation pieces, now we want to start to look at the products themselves. And so 2.5 years ago, we started Cloud@Work. Net@Work has been doing cloud services for close to 8 years in total. But 2.5 years ago is when we really made the decision to enter into the marketplace as our own solution. So we were using, Microsoft, we were using Rackspace, we were using all the big cloud providers to partner and build platforms on so we can deliver to our customers Sage Cloud hosting. And what we found was it was very difficult by introducing layers of service providers into that conversation. It was difficult to deliver the experience that we wanted to deliver for our customers. And so we made the decision to build it ourselves. So right now we have data centers in Philadelphia, in Plano, Texas, and in Canada. Those are all tier 4 facilities, which are very high-end facilities. And we build our cloud solutions between those facilities to solve for redundancy, security, and availability. Our first product that really we created is our entry-level product to introduce Cloud@Work for customers who maybe are in an investment cycle with on-prem hardware where cloud hosting isn't really an option for them. So what we wanted to do for Sage users was create a very easy-to-consume backup service that's $50 a month for 100 gig of disk, which is most of Sage data that would fall underneath of that. And so for $50 a month, you can take your Sage data and you can move it securely to one of our data centers, either in Texas or Philadelphia, to store securely for your backups. Believe it or not, most companies that I talk to are doing backups locally. They're doing backups, not getting them off site. And that's a big risk point for cybersecurity threats, as things that are living on the network will become encrypted. So really important, very easy to do. I suggest this for all of our customers. Very easy, very inexpensive, and an easy way to get your backups offsite. The next piece is really our entry into cloud hosting. So for Sage users who are sub 7 users, I'm going to talk about our virtual private offering in a minute, but for our Sage users who are sub 7 users, we were finding that in today's Sage marketplace, there's a lot of cloud providers out there, and most of them are doing multi-tenant or hybrid hosting and really focused on just pushing cloud at the lowest price possible to attract customers. And what that led to, that uptick in customers adopting that led to, is over the past 2 years, I've seen a lot of competitors in that space have major security outages for multiple weeks at a time and impacting hundreds, if not thousands of customers in the Sage ecosystem. And what that's created is it's created a bias towards the cloud. I've talked to a lot of customers who said, look, I'll never go back to the cloud again because that was such a painful experience. I need to be able to control that myself. So while we were doing all of this great work for companies who were 10 plus users and doing our virtual private piece, we were leaving behind the sub 7 users and allowing them to really consume these inexpensive services that really weren't built the right way for success. And so we created our Sage Hybrid Secure option for them. This hybrid secure option is architected in a way that is different than all the other Sage hosting providers who are doing multi-tenant hosting and hybrid. We do it the right way. We're not skipping on investment. We're dedicating servers for all Sage data. We're providing 24/7, 365 days support and monitoring. Everything is still going to be in our tier 4 facilities. Pricing actually starts for Sage 100. Pricing starts at around $85 per user per month. And then for Sage 300 users, it's going to go to about $120 per user per month. But that's going to include your SQL license, your Excel license, and include that integrated cloud and Sage experience with our help desk. One thing that I'm extremely proud about for Cloud at Work, for Net at Work, is that no matter who you are as an organization, no matter who you are as a customer, whether you're 1 user or 1,000 users, whether you're paying us $100 a month or you're paying us $100,000 a month, we have the same data policy for every customer. And our data policy is that we take hourly snapshots of your data and we store them on a separate network. And we do that for 48 hours. So at any given time for any of our hosting customers, we can roll back to the hour within 48 hours. As well, on top of that, we're taking daily incremental backups and we're storing them in a different data center altogether, whether that be Texas or Philadelphia, depending on where you're doing production. Because of that process, our customers, every one of them, have production data, they have snapshot data on a separate network, and they have incremental nightly backups stored in a separate data center. That's going to create 3 positions of data, which is going to make it very difficult for you as a customer to be in a vulnerable state. And you'll notice that's a theme as we go through our products and services. We're not here to say that any cloud solution or any technology is bulletproof of cybersecurity threats. What we do as an organization is we take the necessary steps on the back end to secure our data centers and secure our infrastructure. But from a client-facing end, we take the extra additional investment, the extra additional steps to create isolated environments so you're not tied to other customers, and to create data policies that make it extremely difficult for cyber threats to impact and put our customers in vulnerable positions. Just because maybe an employee clicked on a link and let in a cyber threat to your Sage data, we can restore back to the hour because the backup data is on separate networks, not impacted by that ransomware attack. Very important. And lastly is our Sage Virtual Private Cloud. And this is really what defines us in the marketplace and who we are as an organization. So unlike the Sage Hybrid Secure, where we're doing a dedicated VM for your Sage data, and maybe doing some different aspects of multi-tenancy, again, very securely behind the scenes to lower the cost point or the price point for customers. Virtual Private Cloud was created to create a completely isolated, dedicated virtual private cloud for customers. So we dedicate virtual firewall, we're dedicating virtual network, we're dedicating all the licensing, we're dedicating all the resources, and we're creating this isolated cloud where not one customer is connected in any way, shape, or form to another customer. There's no sharing of tools, no sharing of resources. What that creates is a very secure, isolated environment with no limitations. So you can bring your customizations, you can bring your third parties, you can bring your ISVs, you could start at 5 users and grow to 500. All of it is going to scale with you and scale with your organization. And we architect our cloud based on what you need, not necessarily making you transition to what we need. So because of that, as I mentioned, we guarantee that 4 nines or 99.99% uptime guarantee. The difference, everything is going to be the same as our Hybrid Secure, except that we offer disaster recovery capabilities. So you have 4-hour recovery time objectives, which basically mean because we're replicating between those two data centers, we guarantee you'll never be down for more than 4 hours in any scenario. And we guarantee a 1-hour recovery point objective, which means you'll never lose more than an hour's worth of data guaranteed by our technology, by our services. And we test that with our customers and we show them that. Again, everything from an integrated cloud and Sage customer experience is really who we are.